Hey everyone, got a Vikings thought of the day for you on February 13th, 2024. After the Super Bowl, lots of obviously Niners and Chiefs headlines, but outside of that, all the other teams are relevant as well. You get Radio Row, you get interviews with current players, you get sometimes front office and head coaches, prominent media members, and there's lots of speculation about the other teams in the National Football League not playing in the Super Bowl. And when it came to the Vikings during the week leading up to the Super Bowl, a lot of it, rightfully so, was about Kirk Cousins. And now that all of that is sort of behind us and the entire league is looking ahead to the offseason and all of the changes that could or could be coming or may not come with the Vikings, my thought of the day is a path back to Minnesota for Kirk Cousins seems unlikely. And this issue is paramount for the Vikings and for all of us, because in trying to project and then eventually analyze what the Vikings do this offseason, the Kirk Cousins situation is an important one to know. I mean, it's with the contract, the salary cap implications, the cash implications, and the fact that it's the quarterback position, the most important position in the game. It's hard to really feel good about any sort of analysis or projection without knowing at least the team's intent, if not the outcome of their decision on the quarterback. And as I like to say, in the absence of truth, perception is reality. Right now, we don't have much truth when it comes to the Vikings and Kirk Cousins, so we have to go with our perception. And my perception is there's really not great interest or passion or likelihood that the Vikings will pursue a path that will lead to a reunion or to the return of Kirk Cousins to the purple and gold. Now, I'm not saying I agree or disagree with that as the outcome. I'm just reading the tea leaves, reading between the lines, reading the headlines, listening to people, and that's what I am seeing will unfold. And I think it makes sense for a few reasons. Let's break them down. Number one, timelines are different for Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. Kirk Cousins was just with Neil Reynolds, Sky Sports across the pond in the UK, saying that he doesn't anticipate discussions really heating up until closer to March, if not into March, which is very much so the case for free agents who are set to hit the market and anxiously awaiting that time where they get to be courted by other NFL teams, see what their market is, and decide where they're going to go. So that's Kirk Cousins' timeline, but that cannot be the timeline that the Vikings are comfortable with in making this decision. You'd think that they want to embark on a path with Cousins, either he's in tow with them or he is not with them. They want to know that and operate in that manner as soon as possible. So the fact that Cousins is okay to wait tells me that that's a sticking point in discussions or negotiations, and therefore a factor that in the equation is a negative to getting the Vikings and Cousins to come back together. Number two, no one in Minnesota's camp is like standing on the table and pounding their fists for Cousins to come back, are they? Am I misjudging that, or do you agree with me on that? I mean, no one is saying, what are you talking about? What are all these questions with our quarterback? Of course he's coming back. Isn't that what you would say if you really believed in the guy and you really wanted him back? Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert. I mean, this is what you say about quarterbacks that you truly believe in and truly want. You dismiss questions that suggest that there is gray area or a possibility that he won't come back. And I'm not hearing that from anyone at TCO Performance Center. I'm not hearing it from the head coach, from the GM, or from the owners. And the Vikings are saying the right things to nurture the relationship should Cousins come back, and while also maintaining their posture in negotiation with his representation. So they're not saying anything wrong or bad. They're just not overtly out there being like, yeah, he's coming back. What are you talking about? So that's reason number two that I see a path back to Minnesota for Cousins being unlikely. And third, and finally, it's not the the best long-term play for the Vikings. Realistically, it's not. I mean, even if you're a very strong advocate for Cousins to be back and you want him back with the Vikings for 2024, you must certainly also realize at the same time that if the Vikings are to truly go all in and try to do something like the Chiefs have done, right? You win 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. Now that's a very extreme bar, or a high bar to achieve. But if you're doing something like some of the NFL elites in the last decade have done, make the playoffs multiple times in a 5-year span, or 4, 5, 6 times in a 10-year span, you truly realize that Kirk Cousins is not the guy who's going to do that for the Vikings, right? He's 35 years old. He's definitely on the back nine of his career. And he's coming off a severe injury, an Achilles tear that cost him whatever it was, over half of the season. So even if you're the biggest Kirk Cousins advocate, you realize that he's not the long-term answer. He's in the year-to-year phase of his career. He's a hired gun year-to-year going forward, which you can win with that, but it's very short-term. It's very year-to-year. So if you're looking for an organic solution to the quarterback situation in Minnesota, you know that a Kirk Cousins return is not in the best interest of that. Also, other long-term assets that you're going to want to secure for the long-term prospect at quarterback to have at his disposal, or to have in support of him, those assets are more easily secured without Cousins in tow, particularly because of the contract cost and the salary cap cost of that. Lastly, you're picking 11th in the first round, right? So your hope is that you'll never be picking this high again. If you're Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, you don't want to be picking this high again. You pick in the top 15 very many times, and it's the last time you're picking in the top 15. The team's going to move on from you. So the Vikings, in theory, will never be picking this close to the top of the draft again, and therefore they'll never have a better opportunity to pick a quarterback this high in the draft, or to trade up to get even higher into the draft to get a guy that they really want. So from that standpoint, this is not a great time to have Cousins come back. Now, I'm not saying that the book is written and the story is over and Kirk Cousins' time in Minnesota is done, and I'm not even saying that's what I would do if I was leading the team. I'm just saying, reading the headlines, speculating based on what we know right now, in the absence of truth, perception is reality. My perception of the situation is that it's going to be very difficult for the Vikings to find a way to reunite with Kirk Cousins for 2024. We will see as free agency edges closer if the circumstances changes, the headlines change, and maybe we'll see a more optimistic scenario for Cousins to come back. But right now, it's hard to see. And that is the Vikings thought of the day for February 13th, 2024. If you're not already, make sure you follow, like, and subscribe to Wobcast 2.0. You can do that wherever you do that with all your other favorite football content, all the platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and of course, we're also on YouTube. Once you do that, we'll see you there. Until next time, though, Skol Vikings.